Here to help us, Dr. Joe Esposito, who is a pain management specialist.
Dr. Oz himself has been nice enough to call in.
Joe came on. He was a wonderful guest.
Dr. Joe Esposito.
I got rid of Google after meeting Joe. You know, he's got encyclopedic knowledge.
There's so much research out there. And so many of you don't know that there's something you can do to get yourself well. So why would you take the risk of putting something in your body that might cause some real serious neurological damage? And that's where the problems come in. And that's why we do this show. The best health and wellness show in the world. Stop suffering needlessly. Every day, patients come in our office and say, Dr. Joe, why didn't I do this sooner? And my answer is, I don't know.
Here to help us from our Atlanta affiliate, WSB TV, and at WSB Radio, Dr. Joe Esposito, who is a pain management specialist. First up, what do you actually, as an expert, do for yourself to avoid hangovers during the holidays?
Well, here's a trick I want everybody to try. For every drink you have, I want you to have 3 glasses of water. And a couple of things are going to happen. Number one,
you're peeing a lot.
You're going to be peeing a lot, so you're not going to drink as much. And you're going to save a ton of money because you're in the bathroom most of the night, right? But seriously, you got to rehydrate the body, and that's what the water is going to do, help rehydrate the body, because alcohol is a diuretic.
All right, so 3-to-1 ratio.
3-to-1 ratio, exactly.
You're aggressive. I thought 1-to-1 was good enough.
3-to-1, man. We're going to do this right.
Hangover cure is one of the top 10 things Americans search for on the internet. So we're going to walk people through this, but is there such a thing as a hangover cure?
There really isn't a cure necessarily. Time is going to be the thing that's going to solve a lot of your problems. Usually about 8 to 24 hours, depends on the person. But there are some things we can do to actually help deal with the more severe symptoms.
24 hours is a long time. All right, so we tasted some of the latest hangover remedies that are popping up everywhere. While there aren't any great studies on these things, we know you guys are using them. So we wanted to see what worked for a hangover and what didn't. The first is something called the hangover patch. Dr. Joe, yay, nay, what is this? How does it work?
What it is, it's for social drinkers. But if you're going to drink, I want to make sure you replenish the nutrients that you're going to deplete yourself. Because when, like I said, you're peeing a lot, you're going to waste a lot of nutrients. So the patch is something, you actually put it on your body, put it on a part of your body that doesn't have a lot of hair. Let's say the under part of your arm here, because you're going to have to tear it off the next day, and that's going to hurt. So you put it on about 45 minutes before you go drinking, and then you leave it on, take it off the next day, and that's going to help just replenish some of those nutrients.
This is For the Health of It with Dr. Joe Esposito.
All right, we have our first question. What do we have?
Hello, Dr. Joe.
Hello.
My name is Rosemary.
Hi, Rosemary.
And I have joint issues in my fingers.
Speaking of.
Yes, exactly. So I'm just wondering what the best remedy is to keep them at bay. I notice when I eat gluten products or anything like that, it inflames the joints. So what's your best recommendation?
Absolutely.
You were just talking about lessening
high fructose
sugar.
right. And even white table sugar is 50% fructose, 50% glucose. High fructose corn syrup is 55% fructose. Agave nectar, the health food, 85% fructose. It's worse than high fructose corn syrup. So don't be fooled into that, okay? So be careful about that. Now, a couple of things you asked about. Number one, gluten is a protein. We're talking about wheat gluten. There's different types of gluten. But wheat gluten is a protein, and it causes an inflammatory reaction because your body doesn't know how to digest it. So it gets into the body and causes an inflammatory reaction. That inflammation can get into all your joints. The other thing I want you to avoid is dairy products. So here's my challenge to you. 2 weeks. No wheat, no dairy, no sugars, no processed sugars. See if it helps. If you don't believe me, at the end of 2 weeks, go back and eating the way you used to. And when it starts to flare up, you'll say, Dr. Joe was right. Okay? Another question.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Zelda, Dr. Joe.
Zelda, Dr. Joe. That's amazing.
Well, anyway, my question was about a routine or possibly a health supplement that would help with memory as well as confusion.
Okay, excellent. What happens is, as we get older, several things happen to the brain. The brain doesn't work like it used to. Now, your brain runs on glucose. Remember glucose? It's good. But if you put too much glucose into the body releases something called insulin. And insulin kind of goes to the cells and opens up the cells so the sugar can go in and be utilized as fuel. If we eat too much sugar, we produce too much insulin, and then the cells say, I can't take any more insulin. I can't take any more sugar. So it says, I don't want any more sugar in my diet, and you become insulin resistant. What's another word for insulin resistance? Diabetes. Type 2 diabetes. You guys are smart. You must listen to the Dr. Joe show. Love that. So too much sugar when you're young is going to affect the brain, absolutely. Number two, we got to make sure the brain is getting good circulation. So as we get older, something called nitric oxide drops in our body. So you can eat foods that are high in nitrates, good nitrates, that convert into nitric oxide. That might be things like beets, arugula. You know what arugula is? Ever have that? I love arugula. Arugula is way higher in nitrates than even beets. So if you have a beet and arugula salad, that can increase circulation to the brain. And that's kind of neat. Now, it also increases circulation to all parts of your body, including the romantic parts. I don't want to get blamed for anything, all right? Just saying. Dr. Joe said eat arugula. Hey, folks, Dr. Joe Esposito here. What we're going to talk about today is cancer. Now, I know that's a touchy subject for some folks, but we're not going to talk about what to do, what not to do. I'm just going to tell you what the research is showing when it comes to cancer. What to eat, therapies that might be working, things you might not have thought about, and then you can decide what you want to do with this information. So there seems to be a dose-response relationship found between egg consumption and cancers. What that means is even if you just have a few eggs a day, it may be associated with about a 19% greater risk of colorectal cancer. But hit 3 or more eggs a week, now that's not a lot, the increase can go as high as 71%. So I tell people if you're going to eat eggs, if you're going to eat any animal product, I recommend organic only. But it turns out not just eating organic is important, but also how you prepare it. Now, there's lots of reasons that I want you to consider changing these chemicals. We'll start with household cleaners. Latest example, regular long-term exposure to spray cleaners increases a woman's risk of lung damage, similar to that of smoking a pack of 20 cigarettes a day. Now, that should be shocking. Because if you came to me and you said, Dr. Joe, I smoke a pack of cigarettes a day, and I said, you should stop, you would say, I know I should. And yet we have people cleaning with spray cleaners, especially because it creates these microparticles in the air. That's an issue. And I specifically see this a lot with people that in a profession, if they're a cleaning profession and they're using these toxic chemicals, not good for them, not good for the people they're cleaning for, not good for their dogs, their cats, because these little microparticles get into the air and you inhale them. So one study published in the American Journal of Respiratory and Clinical Care Medicine, another fun journal I'm sure you have in your house, they investigated household cleaners, including sprays and other cleaners. And the researchers hypothesized that cleaning products they had irritating ingredients in them, and that caused damage through different ways. One was triggering an immune system dysfunction. If you have an autoimmune disease, if you have rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, AIDS, anything along those lines, you want to calm down your immune system. And then if you do something like spray chemicals to irritate it, it's going to make the problem worse.
Dr. Joe, great to have you.
Thanks for having me here. I appreciate
this. It's a huge pleasure of mine. I'm a huge fan. What you're doing in the industry and what you're doing to change people's lives is a huge noble effort. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to showcase you to my audience and vice versa. So tell the world a little bit about Dr. Joe.
Well, it's been a fun trip so far. Boy, what stories we have to tell. I found out that if I went out and did public speaking, it was a way to generate income and patients, generate awareness. And I found if I talked about chiropractic, nobody really cared.
Sure.
But if I talked about nutrition, people got excited. So I was working on my nutrition degree at the time, and that's when I realized that people really care about nutrition. If you talk about biochemistry and neurophysiology and anatomy, that's way over everybody's head. But you talk about tea versus coffee, okay, I can get that. And so I spoke anywhere I possibly could. It didn't matter to me. I would speak, the Kiwanis Club 50 miles away.
Gone.
I was there. It didn't matter. I did everything I possibly could. So many times I would set up lectures at a health food store or at whatever, and I'd show up and I'd have my suit on, the best suit I could buy, and a tie that actually might have matched a shirt, maybe not. And I'd walk in and nobody would show up. And I'd sit there and I'd wait 15 minutes, and I'd pack up my suitcase, I'd pick up my sign, and I'd go home. And the first thing I did was book my next lecture.
Good for you.
That was it.
You kept after it.
That didn't work? All right, but what will work? What happened from one lecture to another, and I started doing one lecture and then another. And again, the marketing is rule. Who you are, where you are, what you do. And I kept thinking every day of my life, I don't think a day goes by, and I know a day doesn't go by still to this day, what can I do to better serve my patients?